Hi everybody. Today's lesson is going to be mostly on some pre-algebra and some basic algebra 1 things. But before we get to that, it doesn't make sense to start reviewing all this algebra stuff unless you know why we're going to have to be doing it. And so I have some notes here that gives you an example of why we're doing this, what the whole purpose is, and we have two geometry objects. These are two common geometry objects we'll see even here in Unit 1 coming up soon. The first one is one that I'm not going to assume everybody remembers the name. I'm going to say the name in a moment here. You'll be like, oh, yeah, of course, that's what that is. But what do you call an object that consists of one of these, let's call it, for lack of a better word at the moment, sides, and a second side, but they have arrows on them, and they sort of look like this? And it's almost too basic. The answer is, it's an angle. And you might think of angles only as corners of shapes, and those are also angles. But angles are more simply these types of problems right here. Second thing, of course, everybody knows this shape right here. This name is a rectangle. And while we don't learn anything new about rectangles until second semester, we do deal with rectangles with the most basic things that you've known for years and years in geometry, and you'll see them early on in the course as well. All right. Why do we bother doing anything Algebra 1 related with geometry? Is geometry and Algebra 1 interconnected? No, geometry is really about objects and shapes and all the things that you think geometry is probably about. But there's lots of different ways to deal with it, and some of it involves vocabulary. What are these objects' names? Some of them involve describing the relationship, like what their properties are in relationship to each other. Are things bigger or smaller than each other? How much bigger, how much smaller? And by different factors. But then we also get into what are the number relationships, how do we measure them, and we try to integrate algebra problems with them, because when you try to do this geometry and higher level mathematics, what you need to do is express them in terms of the problem you're trying to solve. And that's what Algebra 1 was all about, is expressing problems in a way with variables and then figuring out what the answer to the problem is. So algebra integration is important, and the two ones we're going to be looking at today are, what do you do if you already have a value for x? Not if you have to solving something we're going to be reviewing next class, but what do you have to do if you actually have a value? And the answer is substitution. Take the value, substitute that value in, and then multiply to get 40, subtract 1, and this angle measures 39. Not too bad, not too hard. Another thing we can do is some pre-algebra and algebra 1, which is calculating perimeter. And now you've learned perimeter for years, and if you think about perimeter, you have two things you need to remember. First, what math do you do with perimeter? And the answer is you add the sides. So we're going to add. But before we say add the sides, how many things do you add? And a lot of times when people are not being careful, they're adding only two things because there's only two things in the problem. But perimeter is about adding up all the sides of the shape going all the way around. So we need to make sure we're adding 4 sides. 9y plus 5, 2y minus 3. Careful, we need the third side. So we have the top, the right. We need the bottom side. But it's blank. We can't do the problem, right? No. You've known for years and years and years the bottom side of a rectangle is the same as the top side of a rectangle. So there you go, 9y plus 5. And the right side of the rectangle is the same as the left, 2y minus 3. Now the algebra 1 that's involved is combining like terms. 9y plus 2y is 11y. 11y plus 9 is 20y. 20y plus 2 is 22y. 5 minus 3 is 2. Plus 5 is 7. Minus 3 is 4. And we have an answer here. That's why we're doing what we're doing. That's where we're going to be going with these types of problems. But then, of course, we're going to be now focused right now on just Algebra 1 and pre-algebra stuff, so that when we actually jump in and learn new vocabulary and learn new things, we can use what you've learned in the past without having to review those things at the time. That's at least the point of why we're doing what we're doing. So I have a deck page here, notes. This is our main page of the day. Your big assignment is going to be doing something with these notes right here. And honestly, you look at this pre-algebra stuff and algebra 1 things, and you should look at that left-hand column and be like, this stuff is easy, Mr. Sachs. I know this stuff already. I don't need to listen to a 5-10 minute video about this. And you're probably right. The issue is not the left column. The issue is comparing the left column to the right column. The right column has some things that students often make mistakes unless we take 20, 30 seconds per line to double check we know what we're doing. And then sometimes even when people learn everything, they do things too difficult on the left column and do it like the right column. So this is all about comparing and contrasting. You'll see a lot of my notes all year this way, where I try to compare an easy problem to a hard problem, or two things that are slightly different, and make sure we key in on the differences. What's the differences on the first two rows? And the differences in the first two rows are parentheses. What do we need to do about parentheses? We need to do them first. So when you see a problem like the right, you need to first do 4 plus 7, which makes 11. Then do your multiplying. Versus on the left, it's just multiply to get 20, then add 7, and get 27. Both easy problems, but you had to remember parentheses first. Same thing on the second row. You have to do parentheses first. First square, 3 squared is 9, plus 8. You're doing your parentheses, so you have to evaluate that to 17. Then take that times 2. Versus, on the right, easy, careful, do 3 squared is 9. But then be careful, you don't add 8. You have to make sure you do multiplying before you do any adding. Adding comes last. Adding and subtracting comes last. Multiplying and dividing comes in the middle. Squaring or exponents come second in your order, and parentheses come first. So you have to do 9 plus 16 and get 25 as your answer. Okay, like we did on the first page, substitution is very easy. Just remember order of operations. You do have to multiply first, 9 minus 8, not 9 minus 4. No. You have to do multiplying first, 4 times the value of x, 4 times 2 is 8, then 9 minus 8 is 1. The thing where people get tripped up is negative numbers. Because what do you do with this minus 4 times parentheses minus 3? And the answer is a negative times a negative is a positive. So you have to do 9 plus 12 to get your answer of 21. So negative numbers aren't too hard, but people sometimes forget to do it that way. And a lot of times people would write down 9 minus 12 instead of 9 plus 12. Next up, again, even with exponents, evaluating is pretty easy. Just double check you do exponents first. Then you do 5 times 4 is 20. 20 minus 1 is 19. With negative numbers, it's not too bad, but people make a mistake here, so I'm going to pause for about 5 to 7 seconds for you to think or say out loud. So listen carefully. What is negative 3 squared? What is negative 3 squared? And the answer is negative 3 squared is negative 3 times negative 3, which is positive 9. People do okay with that in their head. Sometimes they actually do worse with it within a calculator because they type it in the calculator wrong. And so you want to be careful here. It's a positive answer. We go from there. All right. Distributing is pretty easy. You just need to make sure you multiply both things. So 6 times 3 is 18x, but then 6 times 7 is 42, and it'll be minus 42. No solving. Leave your answer like that. When you distribute a negative, again, just double check that you remember a negative times a negative is a positive. So it's plus 6, not minus 6. And make sure you distribute to both things. And like the first page, combining like terms is very easy. 2x, 9x, minus 6x. Careful, 2 plus 9 is 11. 11 minus 6 would be 5x. And then we still have the 8. Minus 8, not plus 8. Combine things together. Negative 8 plus 1 is negative 7. Separately, negative 4y minus y. Careful, minus y would be the equivalent of minus 1y. Negative 4 minus 1. Careful of your negative number arithmetic. It's easy to make mistakes, like the final question on the Kahoot yesterday, or last class, is... Negative 4 minus 1 is negative 5. Let's see if I can make that look a little nicer. I'm having trouble writing neatly here. There we go. That's better. All right, this page right here, you're going to want to probably, not necessarily right now, but in a few minutes, go back to this video and pause on the screen, unless you've been taking your own notes on paper. You're going to want this screen up when you're doing your major assignment of the in-class time today during your 65-minute block period. Last thing, your homework is not going to be too much. I think it's 7 problems, and it's going to be 7 problems like these more difficult things. So you're going to have a worksheet to do that you're going to want to take a picture of your work for homework, and it's going to be on these topics here. Fractions and multiplying. You might need to find a calculator to just type this in. Can you do 2/5 times 5? Can you do 2/5 times 40? Feel free to use a calculator, although I'm going to explain right now that easily 2/5 times 5 is just 2. And then 2/5 times 40 is the same as 2 times 40 divided by 5. 2 times 40 is 80. 80 divided by 5. Maybe you need a calculator for. Maybe you could do it if you needed to. It's just 16. So be prepared to be able to do distributing with fractions. We are going to have a good amount of fractions and distributing things coming up in this class. I think it's a lot more going to be second quarter than first quarter, but you will see some fractions first quarter. So this is a skill I wanted to go over here during this lesson. Same thing distributing here. Negative 5/3 times 6. Negative 5 times 6 is negative 30. Negative 30 divided by 3 is negative 10. And then negative 5/3 times negative 3x, a negative times negative is a positive. The 3's end up, one's on the top of the fraction, one's on the bottom of the fraction. And when you evaluate it out, it just comes out to be 5x. Again, for the first time, I am encouraging you to use a calculator as much as possible. And when you use a calculator, and when you find one up on a tab that you're happy with, you may want to double check that you're typing it incorrectly and getting the same answers I got of 2, 16, negative 10, and 5. It's very common for people to make some mistakes with this. The longest multi-step you might have to do is a problem like this, where distribute the 3 to both things, distribute the 9 to both things. Distributing the 3 is pretty easy. 3 times 8 is 24. 3 times 1 is 3. Please be careful of your negatives of what comes next. Negative 9 times 4y should be negative 36y, and written this way. Negative 9 times negative 5 comes out to be a positive and should be written as plus 45. Just like the first pages, negative number of mistakes do happen. Then you combine like terms. 24 minus 36 is negative 12y. Negative 3 plus 45 is 42. If I'm remembering the assignment right off the top of my head, you have 3 problems with fractions, and then 4 problems doing distributing and combining in the same problem. And that distributing and combining in the same problem is going to be gigantic for where we get to in a week or two. So even though it's long, that's why it's going to be 4 of your problems for homework. All right. That concludes this video lesson. Your assignment is going to be going back to the previous page. So, hey, I'll even have it up here on the screen for the moment. You may want to pause your video or come back to this video to have this up on your screen, but your assignment's going to be create your own 12 problems. Create your own 12 problems just like these. You don't have to show work, but I do need your answers to those 12 problems as well. So like on the first problems, I did 5, 4, and 7. And I had made it in 2 columns. You're going to be doing this on a Google Doc, and you're going to be creating your own problems, but you won't use 5, 4, and 7. You'll use something else. You're welcome to do this as a partner if you want to use technology, and whether it's your own, whether it's using email, texting, Google Hangouts. What was the other thing I was looking to do here? Your own FaceTime stuff if there's a person in the class you want to work with this, or you can just do it individually. It might be easier to do it individually, but if you and somebody in the class want to work together in this, you're more than welcome. I'm not able to facilitate that today. I will facilitate partner work and group work in the future. Today's just not the day for me to facilitate it, but this is designed to be done either individually or as a partner. So feel free to create your own problems as a partner. If that doesn't make sense, open up the Google Classroom, open up the Google Doc, read it through. It's step-by-step instructions, and if you follow the step-by-step instructions step-by-step, it should make a lot of sense. Thanks, everyone. I'll be in touch when I can, and hope you have a productive work day. Classwork due during class today. Homework due anytime soon. You probably can get it done today, but if you want to take those 7 problems and submit a picture at another time, the 7 problems that go with the page 3 of the notes, that can be submitted as late as Sunday. Take care, everyone.